So the purpose of this video is to discuss what law is and where it comes from. This is what in your textbook would be called sources of law. So first, what is law? Well, in my travels I find out that a lot of people have ideas about what law is. Much of those ideas, or many of those ideas, are certainly accurate. That is, sometimes I hear that law is a set of rules, or sometimes people tell me it's a set of regulations. And other times I will hear people tell me about the purpose of law. That is, maybe it is to create an order in our society, or to say that another way, avoid chaos. Law pertains to questions in our society like ownership, rights, privileges. A lot of people understand these sorts of things as going along with law. And of course, law has to be made by some source. So oftentimes people say courts are responsible for enforcing the law, interpreting the law, or your lawmakers, hence the word lawmakers, make the law. That would be the folks that are in Congress or elected to your state institutions of representation. Well, I think all of those ideas are very good ideas about law. In fact, they showcase what people often bring to the classroom that is accurate. But before we embark on any sort of study, we probably want to have sort of a working definition or a uniform definition, a definition that we all accept. So I went to try to get some more formal ideas about law for you, and this is what I came up with. I looked in a legal dictionary, and law was defined there as a rule of conduct or an action prescribed or formally recognized as binding or enforceable by a controlling authority. And that seemed like it was filled with tons and tons of words. So while it's accurate, it's certainly an accurate definition of law, it didn't seem to be a working definition, something that we could all kind of accept and be able to kind of articulate and really explain. So then I went to a more textbook definition of law, and I found that the text says that law is enforceable rules governing relationships between individuals and society. And so I kind of took the ideas from those two different ideas of law, the dictionary definition of law and the text definition of law, and I came up with something that we will use as a working definition throughout the term. That is a set of enforceable standards by which we all live. So for our purposes, we're going to define law as a set of enforceable standards by which we all live. And that will be kind of the foundation of our discussions as we go throughout the term. So now let's figure out where law comes from. Well, law comes from so many different sources. The first source, the founding source, if you would, the source of origin of all law is called the Constitution. I'm going to put it down here at the bottom. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Every state has their own constitution, so you can have a state-based legal structure or a federal-based legal structure. But in both cases, all law in a particular area or jurisdiction stems from the Constitution. In addition to that law, source of law, we have 3 branches of government described in that Constitution. And they are the legislative branch, the executive branch, and then the judicial branch. And I'm going to go ahead and change my ink color here to describe something that probably is very common to you. Just kind of the trunk of a tree, right? There we go. There's my tree. All right, it looks more like an ornamental fern, but you get the idea. There's 3 branches of government stemming from this trunk, which is down here. So, what sorts of law do each branch of government make? Well, we already learned about the Constitution, and the Constitution being the supreme law of the land. The legislative branch of government makes law, and the law that they make is called a statute. S-T-A-T-U-T-E, a statute. A statute is a set of words that describe conduct that we all must live by. And those words are agreed upon by a majority of the legislators. So there are hundreds of people that must agree on that precise set of words. Federal governments have legislative bodies that make statutes. State governments have legislative bodies that make statutes. And local governments have legislative bodies that make statutes, except for when we're talking about a local statute. It is in fact called an ordinance, not a statute. Then we have the executive branch of government. The executive branch of government houses the chief executive, either called the president in the federal system, or the governor in the state system. The president or the governor can make executive order, and that actually has force of law. And in addition, the president, in addition to what the president or the governor can do, they also appoint administrative agencies, which I will call AA, that create rules and regulations. So a good example of, let's say, a federal administrative agency might be, the Environmental Protection Agency, that creates rules and regulations that deal with our environment. A good example of a state administrative agency would be Department of Motor Vehicles, that creates rules that deal with your privileges for driving on the roads in the state. And then finally, we have the judicial branch of government. Both states and the federal government have a judiciary, and they create cases or case law. Case law is the law or rule of law that's pronounced when resolving a dispute between 2 people. Case law is created mostly by higher level courts, that is appellate courts, not necessarily trial courts per se, although all cases, or I should say most cases, originate in a trial court and originate by virtue of the resolution of a dispute. That leaves us without blue on the Constitution. Well, we already know that the Constitution itself now is the law, so that in fact should be blue. I'm going to go ahead and underline it now. That in fact should be blue. But who made the Constitution? Well, think about it. Who made the Constitution? The Constitution actually tells you. We, the people. The Constitution is the law that we made that satisfied or set up our government and created 3 branches of government. The legislative branch, populated by legislators who make statutes. The executive branch, populated by a president or governor who can create executive orders, and their administrative agencies that can create rules and regulations. And a judicial branch, which resolves cases between 2 people by issuing decisions based on cases. And those cases, or those decisions in those cases, will then become governing rules by which we all live, our set of enforceable standards. So, as you can see, my artwork's not all that great, but this is basically what that system looks like in a characterization. So now it's your job to go through and apply what you just learned. Enjoy it!